Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming today. We are honored and thrilled to get to talk about this topic today with our friend Tracy from GoGuardian student. It taking care of our students in the digital age is so important. There's so much that they're being faced with every day. So taking steps to make sure that we can defend them at all costs is so important. And we're really excited to get to talk to Tracy today. She has such great insight. Corey, also here from Trevera, used to use GoGuardian at his school to help defend student safety and well-being. And so we've got a great conversation coming up here. So I have a few little housekeeping things to get out of the way before we get started. And oh, I see, Rachel, you double booked this morning. Yes, this will be recorded. It'll be on our YouTube within the next couple days. Okay, other housekeeping things. So if you have questions throughout the session, feel free, like Rachel, to pop them into the chat. I will be keeping an eye on that throughout the session and getting them to our presenters, either throughout the conversation if we find a nice little hold for that, or at the end during Q&A. The second bit is if you are interested in claiming that coffee gift card for Coffee and Convo, I need you to stick around until the end and take the exit survey. It's just a couple questions for us to get to know you a little bit better. And we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Should take around a minute. So it's not too much to ask, but again, you're not here to listen to me. There are much more intelligent people who can really get this conversation started. So I'm going to pass it over to Corey.
Good morning, everybody. Kate, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, just making sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Corey Kling, and I am a former IT director from Ridgefield Public Schools in the South Metro and the Twin Cities of Minnesota. And as a former IT director and former tech integrationist before that, I came to be very familiar with GoGuardian as a product, both on the instructor side for classroom management, as well as, of course, the mental health components, which I'll let Tracy speak to in a little bit. I can just say a couple of things about the product as a whole. It is a fantastic product that works from the beginning, like plug and play. It's very easy to install, very easy to set up, very easy to build the guardrails and parameters that you want based on school district policies that you have in place, which is, super important in terms of how you set it up and how you set up your alerts and some of the other things that Tracy will speak to. And we just had a really good experience with it, and our counselors loved it, and our teachers loved it. So it was just our students came to accept the fact and really kind of embrace in the table setting that we did on why we were monitoring the things that we were monitoring. And so, and of course, as Kate had mentioned, we know the challenges of being a child today. I have two teenagers at home, and know the struggle of that, of FOMO and all the other things that mobile devices bring. And so with that being said, the real star of the show here, Tracy's going to speak to all of you. And at the end, I'll just speak briefly on Trevera as a company and what we do. But I wanted to take this opportunity then to introduce Tracy at GoGuardian. She's an education strategist for student safety and mental health, which, as you in her background, she may speak to that a little bit, is not in ed tech or ed tech sales. And so we had a little conversation before this about some of the things that she does in her work, and it's really admirable, wonderful stuff. So thank you. And with that, I'll hand it over to Tracy.
Thanks, Corey. I'll introduce myself a little bit. Again, I'm Tracy Clements, and I now work for GoGuardian, but I am a mental health professional by trade. I'm a licensed professional counselor, K-12 certified school counselor, and I teach graduate classes for people wanting to become school counselors. I have about 30 some odd years of experience in the field of mental health. Landed at GoGuardian about 2 years ago because we utilized GoGuardian Beacon, and it made such an impact on my program that I wanted to come to GoGuardian to make sure that other school counselors and other people understood the true value of Beacon. So we are not going to talk solely about Beacon through this entire presentation. I want to walk through with you guys just kind of building a holistic student support system within your districts and how Beacon layers in there nicely. So just a few intro slides. We are in many of the top districts throughout the US, and about 50% of public K-12 students in the US use GoGuardian products. If you have questions specifically about admin or teacher, we will ping Corey to help with those. I can give you a high level overview of those, but my best knowledge is in the Beacon product. Beacon is our mental health and student safety product. This slide just shows, pretty much we all know mental health is at crisis levels right now. I would argue that mental health was at crisis levels prior to COVID, but it didn't get the attention it needed. So from a mental health perspective, COVID was good in that it shined a spotlight on how much kids are struggling and enabled us to get more resources in place. I do think that it did continue to decline, but at least we have more resources now. This is a quote that I wanted to share with you guys that in my district, when I became director, it felt like an insurmountable task. Our suicide rate was many, many times the national average. And I was a building level counselor at the time, and the principal came to me and said, or not the principal, the superintendent came to me and said, "We have a problem and I want you to fix it." And it seemed overwhelming for one person to be able to address the suicide problem in our district. But I found a group of people who were just as passionate about it as I was, and together we banded together. And I do believe that we fulfilled this quote. We changed the world here. I'm going to walk you through a few of the steps we took. And Beacon is one of those steps, but it's not the only one. So you need to look at it. Well, I looked at it from like an MTSS or an RTI, whichever acronym you use. They're very similar. But just making sure you have different levels of support. So all students need to be learning about healthy regulation of emotion, about how to manage conflict, just all of those skills to regulate their emotions and improve their social interaction. And you can call that whatever you want to call it. But just regulation of emotions and direct instruction for tier 1 is vital. And then you'll see on this slide, I have engagement and connection many, many times. It is really, really important to make sure that students feel connected and that staff feel connected. I found that a lot of times people focused so much on the students that the staff felt like they were being left out. So we kind of took a few steps back and made sure that our staff felt really supported and really prepared to help the kids. Kind of like when you're flying, put your own mask on before you try to help someone else. So I think a lot of times that is in our urgency to help students, we forget to make sure that our staff have their masks on first. So don't forget that spot. Make sure your staff are in a good spot and they know how to get resources, and then you can ask them to help the kids and be sure they have the tools to help the kids. Like there a variety of tools, like be sure staff are trained in recognizing signs of suicide, signs of violence, and that they know when they see those, there's a clear path to reporting that is simple. We don't want to put more on their plates, but a clear, simple path to get those kids connected with the resources they need. Engaging families is really, really important. You hear a lot of time, like just a lot of back and forth between families and schools right now, a lot of distrust. And in my experience, the way to overcome that is through transparency. Like I made sure that I held parent nights and I talked about everything we were doing and why we were doing it. I had a group, it was called a mental health committee, that I opened up to parents to come in and just give us their input and let us know what they need. And as well as parent voice, student voice is vital. I went into health classes in the high school and talked about our suicide prevention and student support efforts, and genuinely listened to their feedback and tried to incorporate it into what we were doing. Like, for example, when we started using Beacon, there's a feature in Beacon where you can send a message to a student when they've generated an alert. And I did not have that feature turned on. And when I asked the kids their opinion about it, they were like, turn it on. And their explanation was if a kid was hanging by a thread and they felt like they were going to try to make an attempt, or they were just in a really bad place, maybe that box popping up and just saying, hey, it looks like you're struggling, someone's going to reach out to you soon, would be enough to keep them holding on. So lots and lots of layers to make sure you have a holistic system. Any questions or comments about that before I move on to talking more specifically about Beacon?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay. Okay, so best practices when you're getting ready to implement, well, I guess let me back up. For those of you who don't know, Beacon is a machine learning tool that lives in the background of your student devices. And again, this is from a non-tech person perspective. Corey, if you want to add more color, jump in. Um, but it's machine learning that lives in the back of the kids' devices. And if they type in something, it lives at the browser level. So if they're chatting or writing a document or searching, um, like the first meaningful one I got was a little girl was searching, how much Tylenol does it take to die? And then her next search was, is it painful to die by overdosing on Tylenol? And she just kind of went down that rabbit hole. I got the Beacon alert. And when I went to make the intervention, I couldn't get a hold of the parents. It was like 5:30 in the evening. So I live in a small town. So I just drove to the house. And when the little girl came to the door, she recognized me for school. And I said, do you know why I'm here? And she just broke into tears and said, because I'm about to kill myself. And so I said, your parents didn't answer when I called. I want you to give them a call. I'm going to stay here with you till they get home, and we're going to get you the help you need. And it, we worked through the intervention, got her the help she needed. And at the end, the mom hugged me and she was like, how did you know? How did you know she needed us? And I said, our tech guy made me start using this program, because when the tech director brought it to me, I was very resistant. My response was, I don't GoGuardian. That is your world. I don't have time for this. And luckily he insisted and put it in place. And that is what made me a believer, because that little girl was not on anyone's radar. She was masking very, very well. Everyone thought she was doing fine, and she wasn't. So kids are more honest with their devices than they are typically with the adults around them. And after that intervention, I cried all the way home. And then I called our tech director and apologized profusely. So that, like, there were many more after that. We used it for about 2.5 years while I was at the district, and they're still using it now. But I called the tech director and apologized, and like started building systems around it and really found the value in it. So I think that's primarily what my goal in working at GoGuardian is I want other school mental health professionals to understand that this isn't just one more thing. This is genuinely a tool that helps you focus on who needs help. So instead of having to walk around and try to find kids that look like they're struggling, or depending on teachers to tell you which kids are struggling, Beacon just shows up in your inbox. Like, hey, this kid may need some help. I have some slides later on that'll show you some of the context that are in the alerts, but it's really a helpful addition to your system because you find kids in different ways. And typically what we found with Beacon is we found the kids that we were missing through other means of identification. But this slide, hopefully you've had a chance to read it. Just be sure that you're utilizing a multidisciplinary approach. Just a mental health person, just a technology person, just an administrator, just a teacher, like each one of those perspectives has validity and they're coming from a different place. So be sure you get all of those to make sure that you're covering all of your bases. Okay, so this is our official Beacon slide. I will not read all of it to you, but the best part about Beacon is it does, like, if you're familiar with GoGuardian Teacher, the teachers have tiles of each of the kids and they can kind of view what they're doing in real time. With counselors, you usually, like, ideal is 250 students to one counselor. That's not the reality for most. In my district, we're about 400 to one, and there's no way you can actively monitor 400 students all at once. So Beacon does that for you. And if it finds anything that might be concerning, it sends you an alert. And then you can go into the dashboard, and I will come back to this one, and you get an alert card, and it's going to tell you what phase it believes it is. So the phases for suicidality were built in conjunction with the American Association of Suicidology and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So they are based on the escalation of suicidal behavior. The most concerning urgent level is active planning, which is like the one I got with the little girl saying, you know, how much Tylenol does it take to die? So active planning, the machine learning has identified that they're looking at lethal means and there's some reason to believe there's intent to act. So that's the only emergency level on here. As you go through this list, they become more proactive. And ideally, when schools set this up, they will turn on the phases. They will be as proactive as possible without overwhelming their systems. So you've got control to see how far upstream you can get. And once you get as far upstream as your system can handle, that's where you stop. Because if you're getting bombarded with tons and tons of alerts that you can't attend to, that's not helpful.
Yeah, and Tracy, I appreciate that so much. I didn't want to pipe in much because I mean the power of what you're sharing is just too incredible. But and I had to, I mean that story is, my gosh, I had to like wipe away some tears there. That's just incredible. But what I wanted to say about that calibration piece is exactly what Tracy was speaking to. It's just where I will Tracy had spoke to this side of it too, but where I'll echo like from the tech lens, it's like making sure that you're align that structure and work with GoGuardian in your adoption to align that structure to match your kind of your interventions and your policies that you have in your schools. And so that will help that like over, you know, so basically like you're not pinging people too much if you're aligning it to what, of course, your policies and what your counselors believe are, of course, the most important thing. So I guess what my bottom line and my point is that the controls exist to be able to do to calibrate it to your district environment and still match then, of course, the all of these items here.
Yeah, and the engineering team is constantly building more flexibility into those escalation lists. And yeah, our poor engineering team, I'm constantly saying, make it do this, make it do that, because it does need to match your systems. And it's the flexibility on the back end of Beacon and how you can set it up and how you build the escalation lists is it should be able to fit right in with what you're doing now without rebuilding. You know, you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. But these phases are, I know in my district, eventually we had active planning, suicide ideation, self-harm, and help and support turned on. Suicide research is typically academic in nature, and I didn't feel the need to know when kids were writing papers about suicide, like, you know, suicide prevention, things like that. But we do have some districts that have the capacity to turn on all of them and review them. I showed you this slide. So when an alert is generated, it sends you an email, and you also have the option to turn on a text message. which I did turn on the text message alerts because I was rarely in my office, so it was much easier to work from my phone. Within the alert, the details you're going to get are the predicted phase, and then you can sync parent and guardian information if you choose to, which is really handy because instead of having to flip back and forth between the Beacon alert and your student information system, it was all right there. They're actually building a feature that should be released sometime in the next few weeks, I think, where you can put parent addresses in there as well, which solves for the problem if you have like a crisis mental health center or your local police department responding to alerts after hours. They can have the address as well without having access to your student information system. Over here on this side of the card, you'll see that it's got screenshots. So you get screenshots of what generated the alert and screenshots from up to 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after the alert. So you have a good sense of context before you even get too far into it. So if it is something that is reasonable and you can see that a kid, like for example, my debate team always did debates on assisted suicide. So if it was a kid that was in a debate and working on that presentation, I could see that quickly from the screenshots and clear it out and move on. It took, 30 to 45 seconds to be able to do that. Sometimes, like if kids are in chat boxes or if they are, when we turned off chat for our kids, they would use Google Docs to chat back and forth. So toward the end of the year, you may have like a 60, 70 page Google Doc with all of their chats through the year on it. And nobody has time to read through all of that. So the machine learning will highlight in blue what it finds concerning. And you can quickly go through that document and see what is concerning without having to get access to the specific document itself. You can see the concerning content without going through all of the Google admin console permissions and all of that. Another thing on this card, the actions taken. So you can log what you've done with this alert, and everyone else that has access to the alert can see it. So that saved us a ton of time in trying to communicate. As the director, like if something came in not through Beacon, like a teacher, filled out the concern form, then I would have to get with the building counselor and say, have you talked to this kid yet? What was the outcome? How did things go? And it was usually a lot of, like emails or texts back and forth, or I may physically have to go to the building to get an update. With Beacon, they can log their actions and I could see very quickly, um, who had the conversation and what they've done with it. And then there's also, you can see on this one, there's a notes tab, but I don't have a good slide of it. You can enter a free form note, which was very helpful for communication. The escalation process through Beacon, it is, like I said, very flexible. We bucket our alerts into suicide self-harm alerts and threats and violence alerts. And you can have either the same group of people or different groups of people which those alerts go to. Like, for example, the suicide self-harm alerts, you could have go to the counselors first, and then the building principals, and then someone at the district level. Threats and violence alerts, you could have go to building administrators and then potentially school resource officers, and then someone at the district level. And you can have either the same or different escalation lists outside of school hours. So lots of flexibility in there. Did I miss anything on that, Corey?
No, I think it's just it's also important from the technical side that like this is mirrors really well with things like Azure and and Active Directory and so on and so forth. So it's like it's a pretty easy setup. And then you may have to do a little group creation on that side of the house, on the technical side of the house, to make sure that you can match up and send alerts to the right people. So like if you don't have a separate group for counselors, for example, if they're grouped in with teachers, you may have to make a new group for them within your Active Directory or Azure environment.
We actually solved for that recently.
Never
So
mind.
yeah, that Yeah, that was usually a workaround to be able to send it to all counselors at once and then all principals at once. And just in the last month or two, now in each escalation tier, you can add as many people as you want to. So
Awesome. Awesome. That's great.
yeah, in my district, I had 5 counselors at the high school. I would want to send to all 5 counselors in tier 1. And then I had it sent to me and the school social worker in tier 2, and then building principals in tier 3. So whatever works for you, we kind of mirrored it off of, we had a an anonymous reporting tip line. And we had that for a few years, and we mirrored our escalations in Beacon off of the way we had that set up. So, okay. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything I missed? I think the main point I want to leave you guys with is Beacon is an amazing layer in supporting student mental health, and it can work with whatever systems you have. Just layer it in there however it works for you.
Wow, thank you so much, Tracy. It has never happened to me that we've had a webinar where I am actively crying. So that powerful. I I don't even have words, but thank you so much for being here. And thanks everyone for joining this call. I'm gonna put our poll up, and I'll give Corey a chance to do a little introduction about Trifera and who we are. And you can take that quiz. If you have any questions, feel free, not quiz, that poll. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or at this point you could unmute yourself and ask any questions to Tracy or Corey. But we'll do a little, yeah, Corey, give us a little intro on who Trifera is.
Yeah, I'll go real quick and just say Trifera, primarily we support the entire ed tech environment. So we really focus on, the classroom walls and out, so anything that's learning environment wise, having to do with learning technology, hardware and software, we can support. And so we kind of consider ourselves that right technology, right support equals a bright future. So look to us for devices as well as software. Some of our partners you see here on the screen, or some of the products that we work with are on the screen. And then of course, some of our software partners, one of those being GoGuardian, is on the screen as well. So we really look to be from the time that you adopt something until the time that you are rolling it out and using it, we really position ourselves as the partner, or from a customer service perspective, of being able to help you from the beginning until you're all the way into your adoption and even beyond. So hit us up if you need anything. Tracy, thank you so much. That was incredible. And GoGuardian, do it. It's a great product. Kate, anything else?
No, yeah, I'll mirror what Corey said. If you're interested in getting GoGuardian for your school, and getting connected with people at GoGuardian to, keep that conversation going, reach out to Trifera. I'll put a link in the chat right now to our contact us form. So if you're interested, we can get you connected to have more conversations. We can get you quotes. We can help do a walkthrough of the platform with you, really anything that you need. Any conversations that you need to have with people at your school, we would love to help facilitate those to get this incredible tool working at your school and literally saving lives. So I'll put this in the chat right now.
Can I jump in and say, I know most of you are tech directors. So if you are getting pushback from your mental health people, like I did to my tech director, feel free to reach out to Trifera, and they can get you connected with me so that I can speak mental health to mental health and help them understand that it really is their tool. It's not tech's tool, it's their tool.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, we'll leave the poll up for a little bit longer so you have a chance to fill that out. Again, that's how you get coffee, so you don't want to forget that. We'll say goodbye. We'll turn our cameras off. But thank you again so much, Tracy. Absolutely wonderful. And thank you for everyone for joining. And we will see you soon. We have a webinar next week with HP. So if you are interested in joining that one, go to our events page on our website and sign up for that. Get some more coffee. But until then, bye-bye. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye.